Now, hi there. Hello, everyone. So nice to see you. Welcome to the town hall. And it's time to begin, isn't it, Brett? Khalifa, Gavin, hello. Hello, everyone. So nice to see everybody. Welcome. You can hear me okay, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, great. Sometimes I think, am I talking into the blackness? Uh, and Hank, hello, Hank. So nice to see, nice to see and welcome, see everybody, and welcome to the town hall. Um, I this is a chance for us to get together, kind of as a community. It's my people. You know, I get a chance to meet with you all, and I'm happy to do it. Happy to do it. I wanted to start with something that I've been working on. The book, as most of you probably are familiar with, um, uh, given to me by Sydney Banks, and something really leapt out at me this week as I was working on it, and that was he wrote. Sydney Banks wrote, and this is a quote. He said, "The the enlightened ones have always had a profound message to give to this world." And I was struck by that because I've thought about how do I couch this book, and I think it is a profound message that is in there, and one that I'm privileged to pass along and contribute to whatever I whatever I have to contribute to it. But that profound message is, through the ages, there have been people who were enlightened, and they did have a profound message to bring to this world, and Sid was one of those. He very rarely spoke of himself as enlightened, but I don't know. I never really heard him say that he was enlightened, but he absolutely had an enlightening experience and a transformative experience. Everyone who knew him attested to that, and any of us who've listened to him in his recordings, etc., would also, you're listening to someone who has uh, a, a profound wisdom. And he also said in this quote, he said that, but oftentimes what these enlightened ones had to say was misunderstood because they talked in a way that wasn't that didn't necessarily that oftentimes did not agree with the intellectual knowledge of the time. And I would say certainly that would be true for Sydney Banks too. So all of us have been affected and moved and changed by getting a piece of this wisdom, or and even a little glimmer, as he also writes in my book, that glimmer, just a glimmer, will turn your whole world upside down. So I just wanted to say that it kind of stood out to me that the enlightened ones have always had a profound message to give to this world. And for me, that means uh, uh, a kind of uh, uh, working mental health, really, a working well-being, a working way of coming back to a deeper state of love and understanding. And uh, I really um, I'm really grateful for that. Um, and he said he said these three principles hold the key to all human behavior. So to live in a time where we've listened to someone who would even say that, much less actually uh, back it up with his own wisdom, uh, and 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 also the results, like um, all of you, uh, is quite a remarkable. It's quite a remarkable thing, really. And so this is what this that I wanted to say that so that could be what this town hall might be a way to launch it, to talk about that profundity and what that's done for us, and and continues to do for us. Uh, he says right at the beginning of my book, he says um, he stepped into a world that very few people knew existed, and that all of his problems melted away like mist in the morning sun. And I think to have that kind of release of ourselves from our troubles, our anxieties or fears or insecurities or difficulties, whatever they may be. um, what an incredible um, gift to that would speak to all human behavior. Um, so I just wanted to say that. So uh, maybe we could throw the room open to sharing or questions or comments or um, uh, uh, have a bit of a forum so we could explore further uh, what this has meant for us and those we love and care about. I'll say one of the things also covered in my book is he says that anyone who understands any one of these three principles will find a state of mind, find a state that is uh, of love and true understanding. And that the other thing that I was really, I've got several things, I guess. The other thing that really leapt out at me was that when you find that state, you will not, you will see how not to judge yourself or judge others. You will realize the crazy making quality that will ensue, and never mind why that happens to you. And I think that those three words, never mind why, really is striking, because you can come back. It's when you think about why you're unhappy and what's wrong and what's the matter with me or what's the matter with others, that that you're missing the opportunity for love and true understanding. So, and never mind why. Never mind why you're missing it. Never mind why somebody else doesn't have that. That's not, or whatever somebody else might think, or whatever you might be thinking that is in the way of your love and your true understanding. Never mind why. And I love those points. I found them to be very inspiring to me, and I wanted to pass them along. So should we throw it open to questions or comments? Brett, does that seem like a good place to go from here? Yeah, he says thumbs up. So comments, questions?
I like the judging other part. It's very interesting. Never thought about it before. Nobody can judge other people better than I can. And I have become a pro at that. But then when I realized it, it's the same thing concept of you can't be angry at other people. You can only be angry within yourself. Anger is not, as the thing said, you can't put anger on an external object. That's the definition of insanity. But it never dawned on me before about the judgment of other people. And as you know, Keith, I have my favorite person who I judge all the time. And and it really hit me is like, why do I need to judge? And, I figured how free my life would be if I just gave up judging people. Well, why did they do this? Or this person's not doing that. And why didn't he do it this way? Or why didn't she do it this way? And I just know that would be a freedom if I could just give up the judging game.
Yeah.
I know the principles, it's like I have all the tools. It's sort of like it's like making a cake. I have all the recipes to bake that cake fantastic. But when it comes out of the oven, it's not right. And that's how I feel sometimes about this, is that I have the recipe. I'm just having trouble getting it made. Yeah. I don't know if other people have that experience.
Yeah. Well, I think, but in the moment, just let me say, in the moment when you've baked a cake, so to speak, or you felt a feeling of negativity, a feeling of judgment, a feeling of poor me, or whatever particular variety of little negativities you have, and they, if as soon as they show up, if oh, I just baked to your point, Jim, I just baked it didn't work out. I forgot to put the sugar in, right? There was something missing. Oh, well, whatever. If you don't feel the feeling is a beautiful opportunity to bake again, and with the moment-to-moment nature of mental life, you'll never run out of opportunities to try another, to make another effort. So you just drop it, and it doesn't matter, and never mind why. Will clear your head of those misgivings or misunderstandings or negativities. We've never had it's so simple, but you get used to that rhythm of dropping it and starting over, and that's that's really what people call resilience, and resilience is something that people unilaterally report who've come in contact with the principles. They just find a way to begin again, and you know, the idea of resilience, by the way, was developed by engineers because they, with a fender on a car, you can dent a fender, but you can pop it back out. And if you pop it back out, it's just as good as new. And it can just pop. You can just realize, never mind why. I lost my way. And that, because those principles are always true, they're always going to give you the feeling of your thinking. And if there's negativities, then you're getting guidance. Thank you, Jim. Anyone else?
Yeah, left. Mark.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you, Brett. Thank you, Keith. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I haven't used Zoom for a long time. I just completed the iHeart course in England.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, and that was really good. I've been around the principles for around 3 years, and your paradigm has really helped me enormously. And I mean, it comes to my question. I've had a lot of like changes happening to me. I find like, I mean, I've used the paradigm a lot, and it's really helped me. But what I've found with myself is that I've had very big insights into pain that I've had in my past. And I find that past pain that I've carried, I know pain shows up that was sort of in the background. It comes forward into my consciousness, and then more pain comes, and then pain from different parts of the body. I don't know what they are. And they just keep coming forward. And I know you don't, in the principles community, we don't talk about past pain and things like from what I hear that comes through, but I just feel that's something that's happening to me. And I don't know what your opinion would be about that. Because I mean, when you read a lot of the, I don't know, like Eckhart Tolle and people like that, they would talk about presence, that you have to be present with the pain that's coming through. And I'm wondering how you would talk about that, about past pain, which I don't necessarily know what the pain is or what I'm carrying from the past, and how you'd use that with a diagram, like.
Yeah. Well, that's a great question or commentary. So the principles, because they're before they're depicted in the diagram here, for example, before thought, before the what. And so we have this power of thought, and it can be positive or negative. There's no judgment about the quality of the feeling that is made manifest, because it's still thought. All feelings, whether positive or negative, are derived from these principles. But because of that, and they're neutral powers, they're not, so there's no load on them. There's no, they have a beautiful neutrality. And so as such, this is what we meant to depict on the left side of the diagram, as you all, most of you would be familiar with. But I find that line, so this is, psychology, modern day psychology does not have principles. So it's all about the past. It's all about the what of your feelings, exploring that, what have you. And there's been no scientific claim, or which Citibank saw for some reason. This is his profound, one of the aspects of his profound message that he left for all of us, was that there were pre-existing powers, and somehow we're all invested with those powers, and as such, they provide for, like I was saying earlier, resilience, or starting over, or re-inspiration, or dropping the negativity. So the negativities, because they work, the principles are alive and well and have been for eternity. They allow us to think, and sometimes we think negatively. But again, I would say, Mark, it doesn't really matter the what. And I know many of you have heard me tell the story, but it might bear repeating. Valda, my wife, who can't be here today, she was driving down the road, and this is just an example, but she suddenly felt an overwhelming anxiety, and it alarmed her. She was by herself, and she thought, "Oh my goodness, there must be something about to happen on the road." And so she looked out her windshield to see, is there someone that's on the wrong side of the interstate, coming my direction? She could see nothing. She looked in her to her side. She could see nothing. She looked in the rearview mirror, and she could see nothing. And then she thought, it must be the car. The car is about to explode, or something's going to go wrong with the tires or the motor or something. So she checks the instrument panel, nothing. She checks everything again. She checks it again, and then the principals it was like a reminder. She thought, well, wait a minute. I had to think myself to this state of anxiety and fear that I'm experiencing right now. That I had to think myself. There's no other way for me to have gotten here than via thought. And when she saw that, it kind of satisfied her. It made it logical why she was feeling what she was feeling, positive or negative. The logic and truth of the principles provide this overarching, overriding, eternal logic. And so she knew that that's how she had to have come to that feeling, Mark. And so as such, it just disappeared. Now, it was the most overwhelming anxiety she had ever felt in her life. And then it was gone. Now, I'm not saying anything else other than that's her story. But the fact of that, the knowledge of where your feelings are coming from in the moment, and where they're always coming from, they're always coming via thought, via your psychological life. You have a psychological life, and the experience of it is the quality of the feeling you're getting moment to moment. And if you don't see, like with me, I always wanted to trace it back and find, well, what was the event? What was the circumstance? What does it say about me? What does it say about my mother? Or what does it say about society? Or what does it say? I wanted to figure out a cause to kind of blame in a way. But with Val's story, you can kind of see it. Now, there could have been something wrong with the car. There could have been a crash that was imminent. I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying that the feeling state that she landed in the moment had to be via thought. She had to get wherever we all are right now. we have to, because we're equipped with these principles, and it's too late to do anything about the feeling we've wound up in, but to know where that feeling is coming from. How did this have happen to me, that I'm here with this feeling state that I have right now? That's an incredible, powerful thing. And if you don't try to figure it out, that's the thing. Sydney Banks must have said that, I don't know, thousands and thousands of times. Don't try to figure it out, because he could see that was the thing that people do that draw them into their thinking and into their pathologies and into their insecurities and into their past and into it draws them away from the gift of the secret to human behavior. So have I abused that gift and drawn away and spent years wondering in the wilderness of my own craziness? Of course, and I know most all of you, and I would imagine you would all say, yeah, me too. So what? The principles account for it, explain it. So if you can really trust that, Mark, I think it will give you. Don't try to. It doesn't. Now I can say it doesn't matter, but I know if you're bent on doing it, you will try to figure it out. But
I've
don't.
The last few days, I just had an insight over the weekend that I've been doing this for a very long time, trying to figure out what pain. And I mean, I'm doing very well. I mean, I'm much more present and I mean, I'm much less in my thinking than I used to be, but I still have like every Saturday, every Friday night, I start to feel a certain tension in the body, and I'm trying to figure out like, but I want to like add as well. No, I thank you very much. That was very helpful. I just wanted to say about the diagram, because there is pain like headaches and back pain and neck pain. And when we say, where do I think my feelings are coming from? So we have backaches and things, but I noticed that there's always a judgment to any feeling, right? So there's like people have back pain, and some people it ruins their life, and other people it's just back pain. Like
That's true.
The perspective, yeah. So that's what I found with some of my pain, that it's I had certain pain, but headaches tend to be really bad, and headaches don't bother me because I've had headaches, and everyone has headaches, and I don't know, and you take a painkiller and it's acceptable. So I'm not frightened of it, and I accept it. So I was wondering how you, with your clients, how you'd put it on the diagram. Where do I think my feelings are coming from? So I put, where do I think my mood is coming from? And then I put the feeling on the, sorry, I'm getting a bit thing, but I put the feeling on the line. So I'd put, let's say, headache or tension in chest. And then I put, where do I think my mood is coming from?
Well, here's the thing.
Yeah.
It's really simple. The diagram is really simple. There's a line, there's a red line, and that red line is a line of truth, let's say. And these little lines here help us, or help me, to delineate. You always put the exact same thing on the left and on the right. So just for example, you put back pain or headache, or you put headache here, you put headache here.
Yeah.
You put, someone cut me off in traffic this morning. You put that here. You put circumstances there. You can put anything, but that line, just putting the same thing on both sides, just that alone causes people, I see them, when I use this, I see them, they'll just kind of stop and they're like, so you put the same thing on both sides? Yeah, exactly. Circumstances, yeah, same thing. You put the exact same thing. It's not saying that they don't exist, but it's somehow the diagram and the same thing on both sides, it kind of automatically forces a person in general to reflect, like, oh yeah. And that reflection is a kind of there's insight in that it's not, the feeling isn't coming from experience without thought and mind and consciousness. It absolutely always is coming from the truth of the principle. So when you get that insight, it just takes the steam out of the suffering. There's suffering. People suffer. We suffer outside in. We may not own it or be aware of it, but there's always suffering outside in, because you're struggling. You're trying to figure out why am I having this? What's the matter? So if you put the same thing on both sides, you stop and you reflect. Now I had a person once who came to my office. He came for an intensive, and and I showed him the diagram, and we put things on the diagram. He was an engineer. He loved it. So he goes home and he says, he calls me, he says, "You saved my life." And I said, "Great. What do you mean?" He said, "Well, when you put that on the both sides," he said, it kind of forced me to really accept the fact that I had a pain, an odd pain in my chest. And I have just ignored it for probably a year. He said, so somehow when you put it, I didn't even know he had this. He just did it on his own. He says, odd pain in my chest, odd pain in my chest. Well, he thought, I'm going to go to the doctor. So he goes to the doctor. The doctor does examination. They set him up for some tests, and they find out that he has an aneurysm in his aorta, meaning the aorta it has a balloon on it, right? It hasn't ruptured, because if your aorta ruptures, you're dead. There's no way anybody survives that. But his aorta was bulging. And so they said, oh my goodness, you need to come in immediately. And so he came in, and they scheduled him for surgery like the next day. And they did something. I don't remember what they did. They put a stent in, or but they fixed his aorta, and he was so grateful. He said, I got my kids, I got my life, I love my career. He was a very positive person, but he had he had a thinking of denial, of a kind of like, well, I'll just never mind that. Well, I've had, I could tell a story about myself that way, but it doesn't really matter. It's just that when you have your bearings, when you have your mind, your common sense, it doesn't mean that you're not, that you're not, you don't get older. It doesn't mean that you don't have to pay your taxes. It doesn't mean that but it takes the suffering and the confusion and the unnecessary, it takes the unnecessary suffering out. Then see what you got. And that bearing will allow you to face life rather than, in his case, deny it, run away from it, not want to. He didn't, oh well, whatever. And I thought to myself, gee, how many? And as everybody knows, men often die suddenly, of heart ailments that that had they been more less in their head, less thinking about it, less fearfully thinking about it, or in denial about it, or whatever, they might attend to it, and that might be life-saving for them. So your mind will work for you in this state of love and true understanding. You will get the ability to move forward, drop things, get over things, small things, medium things, even larger things. But it gives you a chance to be wise rather than lost. And that's a beautiful thing for the human race. Beautiful thing.
Keith, Mark said something which I related to. Every Sunday night, I would have massive anxiety attacks. And it was when I started working with you, one night, I was just saying, I'm obviously coming from the past, and I have to realize, and I just had to say, I don't know what happened on a Sunday night. I don't give a shit. Pardon my language, folks. I just said, okay. In the moment, I thought of what am I doing right now? When I start to focus on the moment, I noticed those anxiety attacks started to go away because I realized there was I never mind why. I don't even know what it was on Sunday nights that always caused those massive anxiety attacks. But when I started saying, oh, well, right now, this is what I'm doing right now, that's all that really matters. And when I kept the focus on now, the anxiety attacks went away. And some of the pain, it's that I'm finding that I'm bringing yesterday's dinner to today. And I can't do that. I can't remake yesterday's dinner today. And that's what I was doing on a subconscious thought. And that's just what worked for me, is trying to get refocused on the present.
Yeah. The principles are always in the present. So there's always there's truth in this present moment. And you can find that, and it will remove the contamination of the past insecurities or thoughts. It's very common that people have, the kinds of things you're mentioning, a dread, a sense of, oh gee, tomorrow's the work week. Oh, I hate that. And so you and then you feel the negativity, but you don't realize you're thinking that negativity. See, if you see it, then you realize, oh, that's what's that got to do with now? It's nothing to do with now. It's you're going into your thinking about a dreadful Monday, which is, but understood as such, it disappears. It will disappear. I promise you, your anxieties, your fears, your doubts, your jealousies, your past problems, they're all in thought, because you are a psychological creature. Everybody is a psychological creature. This is the answer to human behavior. And all human behavior is determined by our use of those three principles. But if you use them to your wisely or to your advantage, which you might as well do, then you will be, you will create a state of love and true understanding. Yeah. What else? Anybody else have in our town hall community here?
Okay, Gia, could you come on, please?
I think I'm on. Hello.
Hi, Gil. Oh, there you are. Okay.
There I am, yes. Thank you.
You're welcome.
See you, Keith, and hi, Valda, wherever you are. She's probably watching football. Is that right, do you think?
Yeah. She's in there. She's she couldn't tear herself away. Yeah.
So I hope I'm somewhat relevant to what you've just been discussing. By the way, for Mark, I would suggest Hannah's book on pain that's been out for a few months now. Do you know about that, Keith? You probably do. The book that Hannah wrote, it's called Pain, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Hannah from Israel.
I don't know of it. I don't
Okay,
know of
it's
it.
a very nice book, and she talks about you in
Okay,
the
yeah,
book.
I'm gonna order it. I'll check it out. Thank you,
Yeah.
Gil. Thanks.
So I just read recently, Keith, your article on, am I on, by the way? I don't know if you can see me or not. I'm seeing Mark
Yeah.
now. Yeah,
No, you're doing
Okay.
fine.
all right, there. Your article on your website about the time that Sid was being honored at the, I think it was a university, and was being honored, and
Yeah.
the big honor, I think he was having something named after him, or getting a
Yes.
plaque or something like that. And
Yes.
it's always difficult for me to read that, because then he got somewhat confrontational, I would say, in his presentation. And I always think, well, what if all those kinds of things that school would have come into place. But I take that's even kind of an example. You often talk about his ability to be, now I'm losing the word, but true to his word, I guess, with what he was teaching. And he got confrontational, I guess, with even psychotherapists about their tendency to go into the past and deal with the what and everything in their therapy. And I guess, again, his way of speaking actually to the lady that was in the audience, I think, if you remember that, and then to the the therapist, as I say, was somewhat confrontational. I don't think that you're suggesting that we be that way in our sharing of the principles, right? I mean, that's again, I'm forgetting the word, but he was just so grounded in what he was teaching that I don't think he had any second thoughts about being somewhat confrontational in that situation. So.
Well, a couple of comments, Gil. Like he Sid was Sid, and so
Yeah.
and you're you, and
Yeah.
we're each ourselves. So I think you have to find your way to speak, and discern and communicate. I I'm he really he was very astute and keen. He had a keenness, and he didn't there was no ego in his comments or his confrontations. It was a mirror. Think of it as like science. Here's a simple example. Like before there, I mean, not that long ago, there were no germs on the planet. And one guy, a physician, a little stormy Hungarian guy who was a physician, he as soon as he got out of medical school, he was appointed to be the director of obstetrics to this whole huge hospital. And he happened to have a chance conversation with the in his particular hospital. They treated thousands of mothers in delivery at this hospital, and about 10% of the women who came through to deliver babies died, and they died of childbed fever. And so 10%, think of it, like that's a huge that's a huge number. And of course, people also died of wound fever and other surgical fevers. So he had this chance conversation with, and his name was Semmelweis. So Semmelweis has this chance conversation with this midwife, the person who runs the midwifery unit. And in his hospital, every other day, the expecting mothers who were going into labor would land in the midwifery unit or the medical unit. He was in charge of the medical unit. So he has this conversation with the midwifery director and says, "Oh, by the way, what kind of mortality do you have from childbed fever?" And she said, "Oh, less than 1%. Well, he's shocked because in the medical unit, they have 10 times that rate of mortality. 10 times as many mothers are dying in childbirth on his side of the wall than are on the other side of the wall. And they're randomly, assigned. So he is really upset about this. He was a stormy guy. He was a little short guy and he's just fiery. And so he goes back to he has this buddy of his who's named Kolechka. And so he talks to Kolechka, who's also a surgeon, and he says, "What's the deal?" And and what are they doing over there? So he decided to investigate. What are they doing over there? They take women in and they don't do this. And here we do that. Let's quit doing that and do this other. Let's try to do what they're doing. It didn't make any difference. Still, 10% of the women were dying. So he's so stormy. He's such a and he wrote a book about this. And the critics said this was the worst medical book that's ever been written, and it's the most important. So, Kolechka says, "You got to take a break, Semmelweis. You're just driving yourself crazy with this. Go to Vienna. Go to Vienna. Take 3 weeks. I'll handle all the autopsies of the dead mothers." So that's what he does. He doesn't get any rest in his vacations. He's fretting and worrying about this. Why is it? Why are we killing 10 times as many mothers on our side of the wall? He comes back. He goes right back into the autopsy room, and they're doing more autopsies. There's more dead mothers stacked up. And so he says, and the orderly comes in. He says, "Where's Kolechka? I need his help." He said, the orderly looks ashen. He says, "What? Why? What's the matter?" He says, "You don't know?" And he says, "No, what?" He says, "Kolechka's dead." And he's like, "What?" He says, "Yeah, he got a fever and he was dead in 3 days." So he goes up, Semmelweis goes up to the medical records unit, and he notices this little notation that that Kolechka was nicked in the hand by a clumsy medical student with his instrument, with his scalpel. And so Semmelweis, and then he reads the symptom pattern that Kolechka died from, and it was identical to all these mothers. Kolechka was a male. So why would he die of childbed fever? So it had nothing to do with childbirth. It had to do with, and the thought that occurred to Semmelweis, there must have been some material on that scalpel that killed my friend. And so he immediately takes measures. Now that was the birth of germ theory. And that one insight totally changed civilization. It was one insight that germs were everywhere, you know, and it was 35 years before they had the microscopes to see a germ. But they were there, and he logically deduced that they existed, and so that he would go to medical assemblies and stand up, and he was not very tactful. He would raise the Dickens. He would stand. He was noted. At one point he would stand. He stood up and said, "You, sir, are a murderer." He's pointing to his fellow physicians because he knew they were killing mothers, and not only mothers, they were killing wounds. In any wound you come in, they were doing surgery essentially with dirty hands, but didn't know it, and they didn't know that was a problem. So all that is to say is there are evolutionary developments, you know, and Sid had an evolutionary insight that was profound about mental life and how it worked. And he saw that negativities fostered. Negativities were a kind of common diagnostic malady. Insecurities, negativities, fear, doubt, jealousy, envy. It didn't matter the type of negativity. It indicated suffering, and that suffering was caused by an innocent misuse of the principles. He saw the principles, and he saw the possibility and the potential of mental health for the world. He saw it.
And that therapists were actually hurting their patients, or could be.
Oh, they were. They absolutely were.
Yeah, yeah.
And they still are. They're, in most, but the patients hurt themselves.
Yeah.
And then sometimes they don't know what to do, and so they go hire someone else to help hurt themselves.
Yeah.
You know, but the innocent misuse of the principles is the answer. It's the answer to world mental suffering.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, we've stumbled into this knowledge. I got a degree. I got my medical or my doctorate degree, but I never heard one thing about principles. They were never covered. I talked to a student of psychology at the University of Michigan this week. I said, what about the principles of psychology? She said, what's that? I mean, she'd never heard of it. Most 99% of the people that have studied my field had never heard of the three principles. But they are the answer to all human behavior, and I now know that, and I'm going to keep saying it till the day I die. And a lot of people like you all, you know, you're kind of my crew, have said, you know, there's something to that. I mean, you've all had results. You've all seen something of the logic and wisdom of that, of the truth of that, each in your own way. And so, and now, if in the practice of psychology, and what you're talking about, Gil, Sid did not, so I want to make this clear, he didn't make a confrontation in a big presentation, and he did not in any instance or just, he did not make himself out to be a troublemaker. He was, but he was also, he couldn't help himself, just like Semmelweis. Like, if you see that if you know that dirty scalpels lead to death, and you know that people are not sterilizing their instruments. He was the only person in the world to do that. But he had to tell somebody, you know, and God bless him that he did, because it got us going. Now, Semmelweis himself died of a nick that he received in surgery, but it was a slow death. It was a slow evolving infection, but it killed him. But still, the truth was the truth about germ theory. And so, and it's not about Sydney Banks, it's about the truth of how these principles, the innate nature of our nature, the innate truth of our nature, and we are all the same in that truth. And that can't be changed. It's the news is out, and you all are all part of our, part of the public, and I am too. That wow, I saw something about my negativity and my feeling and where that came from, and I got before that, and when I did, even a little bit, it really, really has helped me.
You often talk about how rigorous Sid was in his thinking, and I think this is probably an example of that, yes?
Say the word again. How? What? He was in his thinking?
Rigorous.
Rigorous. Yeah. He knew that. He knew this line, if you will.
Yeah.
He knew one step to the outside, doing this, chewing, blaming, thinking, judging. He said he could see people would do it in front of him, and justify that this was true. This was true. This really happened to me in my past. I really do suffer pain, or I really, whatever. They have their excuses, you might say. We've all had excuses, but he could see it. And what was he to do? Was he to say, "Oh, never mind, never mind your excuses. Just carry on with your unnecessary mental suffering. I got nothing for you." Well, no, he was. God bless him that he said, that's not required. That's an option. When you go to school, I remember going to college and they said, "Well, here are the core courses that you take if you want this major." And then I said, "Well, is that all that I can take?" And they said, "Oh no, you have electives." I said, "Well, what do you mean?" You could take, you have, 55 hours of electives or whatever it was. And you can take those from any part of the university. If you want to study home economics or astronomy or anthropology, you can take courses. Those are electives. In Sid saw that they were not givens, they were electives. The suffering, the psychological suffering was not and is not determined by anything other than our use of these three principles. And that's a heck of a deal if you think about it. That's really quite. I mean, it's more revolutionary than germ theory. It's a bigger deal because, as we all know, in modern society, the wars and the starvations and the judgments and the politicization of all kinds of things are all folly. And they're all we are doing those things. Those are behaviors that we emit. And they're not they're not givens. We don't have to live under the duress of these stressors and strains and antagonisms and judgments, and they're all innocent. It's innocent, but it's deadly. And I'm glad. I mean, Sydney Banks, a ninth grade educated welder, you know, but he saw the precision of that line, and he didn't back off. I didn't like it. There were times I didn't like what he, you know, I thought, like, I remember when he said, never mind the past. And I thought, what do you mean, never mind the past? That's everything. Everything in psychology is based on the past. But he could see, no, it's in the thought of the past. He saw the thought was the key. Not what, and if you look at human resilience, you'll find, you know, there are bulletproof kids, for example. There are people, you all know them. You all are some of them. You've gone through what you've gone through, and now you don't suffer anymore what you went through. And maybe you didn't even suffer it at the time. You might have said, well, but, you know, bad things happen to good people, and you carried on. So it's not a given. You're not given to, you're given to health, you're given to welfare, you're given to truth, and all of our truth as regards to the principles is the same. That can't change.
Excellent. Thank you very much. That's great. Yeah.
You're welcome. You're
And so
welcome.
there is a time and a place to not be so tactful, right? So.
Well, yeah, I mean, everybody, you find your way, but you know, like, I mean, you gotta love people. I mean, you love, and you know, you feel for their suffering, because you know, and I know, we really do suffer mentally. That's no doubt. But to say that's to relegate a person to that, condemn a person to that, that's malpractice. And that's what said, you know, in one of the stories that you're alluding to, he brought up this to a chief of psychiatry at a hospital, and the chief did not like it. But I mean, to me, it was kind of like, it's kind of like the emperor's new clothes or something like that. Like a kid says, you know, you're naked, you know, like Sid being completely unqualified as to his training. He has no training. He left school when he was 13 years old, and he stands up to this chief of psychiatry of a medical school that's, you know, one of the 50 largest, you know, medical training institutions in the United States, and says, you ought to have your license revoked. You know, you ought to, and now he didn't do it in a great forum, although I wouldn't put it past him to have done it, but he did it in a private way. And he said he was, what was he supposed to do? You know, what was he supposed to do? Just say, well, never mind. I mean, thank God you know, he saw something, and that is not something to sneeze at, you know, like that's, or dismiss. I didn't want to dismiss it. I didn't like it always, but I liked hearing it. Because I don't want to hurt people.
Yeah, Keith, it was the delivery method. It's like taking a medication. You can take a shot in your ass or you can take a pill. Most people are going to prefer the pill. And I think, Sid probably, if you would have said it in, I am concerned that you are hurting people, people hear things on their own way. So it's sort of like giving the medicine. He should have given him the pill. It's the same effect instead of giving him the shot in the ass.
Yeah, yeah. But I would say 99% of the time, Sid was unbelievably patient, loving. He gave the pills. He handed out. He romanced. He was not an axe murderer. He was an incredible teacher with foresight and wisdom, and he treated people with great patience. I remember I went to a 75th birthday party, and there were all these people. It was kind of a surprise birthday party for him on Salt Spring Island, and there were hundreds of people there. They all showed up they came from everywhere, and it was it was an honoring, because little did we know that he would be dead in 3 years. But so there's all these people in the lobby, and it's a very festive occasion, and into this lobby, because I was I don't know, I could just sort of, maybe because I'm taller, I don't know what it was, but I could kind of see what was going on. And I kind of studied Sid. I sort of wanted to know. I was intrigued by him, and had been for 30 years. But into this lobby stumbles this disheveled person, a local person, and it's filled. And this lobby is filled with doctors, and I mean, it's just an unbelievable array. You can imagine the I don't know, the beauty of all these people. And in comes he's the local town drunk. And he's stumbling, he's drunk. And he looks over bleary-eyed across all these people, like, well, where did all these people come from? And who does he spot? He spots the one person in the crowd that he knows, Sydney Banks. And he goes he fights his way through the crowd. Hey, Sid, and he has this whole something that he wants to talk to him about. And Sid talks to him. And I watched this, and Sid saw me watching him talk to this person, and he kind of looked at me like, well, he kind of smiled, and he sort of said, what am I going to do? This was his 75th birthday party celebration, and all these people had come, and I would say probably 30 minutes, 40 minutes of the time got devoted, surprisingly, to the town drunk. And he was so kind and so sweet and so tactful and so patient with that man that it stayed with me. And he called out the chief of psychiatry of this medical school too. So which is interesting. Quite an extraordinary time. Quite an extraordinary person. So, and with those closer to him, I think he took more. Those of us who were trying to fathom what in the world is he talking about, we we kept sticking our nose back in, you know, and he guided us, helped us. So that was a wonderful thing.
Thank you, Keith.
You're welcome, Gil. Thank you. So nice to see everybody. Any other comments or questions or anything?
Yes. I would like to bring on Alia. I hope I pronounced the
Leah.
name right.
Hi. You did, you pronounced it correctly. Hi,
Yeah.
do you know, I feel like you've just answered so much without me even asking the question. I've been away from the principles for so long now. I can't even see you. I don't know what's happened to my screen. Sorry, I do apologize. I want to see you so I can think. Yeah, and it was more about the suffering. So I kind of I made a big boo-boo. I feel a bit thingy. I kind of moved away from the principles. And it was the biggest mistake I've ever made. And like, this is the first time hearing the principles after a really long time. And I feel like I've come home in some ways, if that makes any sense. But
Welcome home.
thank you so much. Thank you so much, Keith. You know, one of the things that I'm really, I'm kind of, you know, I'm stuck in the consequences of what has kind of happened. I'll be really honest, and it's one of the things that's almost you know, it's really hard, and that's the suffering, and it's kind of like that torment that you put yourself through. Couldn't understand. It was like, you know, like you said, you walked in that wilderness, and I've listened to you speak to, you know, 3 of the other gentlemen that came on, and the process, and I feel stuck. I feel so stupid saying that. I feel stuck because although I feel like I've come home, and I feel like wherever I'm meant to go now, I know that this is the path I need to stick with, and it feels so amazing to have made a real decision. And but there's still that question, you know, that horrible moment where you think, oh my God, how did I do this? How did I do it? And you know, my life kind of literally has fallen apart. I'll be very honest with you, literally fell apart when I did this. And it was kind of like the 7 principles, the 5 principles, and it just completely messed with my mind in so many ways, and resulted in me ending up everything I'd learned about, you know, not finding labels, etc., running around trying to find a diagnosis, find a label to explain why I couldn't. And it just took a simple 5 minutes on here to realize that I feel like I'm home, like, and I feel so silly for saying it, but how do we, you know, the suffering I've gone through over this past, I'd say, well, I think my journey with the principal started about 5 years ago, and then I kind of almost dropped out of it last year. And in a year, everything I'd worked for in the last 3 years or 4 years with the principles, I've completely shattered it, you know, destroyed my life literally. And I just don't know how to forgive myself. And I listened to Sid talking about, you've got to forgive yourself. And I try to go back to that, and it's like, no, little mind just speaking away. And it was literally because there was this one thing that I could not get clarity on. I couldn't, no matter how many times I listened. You know, it's that you don't realize, even in the principles, the ego, that part of you still creeps up and still manages to sabotage you in some way. And some people are really fortunate enough to not sort of go down that path. And unfortunately, I was the dopey one that actually did it. And, you know, lesson learned, you know, but I've completely sabotaged. I was coaching, I was doing so well. And like, I've completely destroyed my life, and I don't know how to live with myself from that place. And I don't know how to start again.
Yeah.
And that sounds really quite quite heavy, doesn't it? But I'm sorry, I didn't know who else. I'm so glad it's you, Keith, on the phone, because I've seen, you know, most, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know why I've made that comment, but what you were talking about, stumbling in the wilderness, and you went away and then you come back, and then, you know, what you were saying to the other gentleman about, you know, that manner in how you transform, but not everything happens, and you got to just, you know, go away from it a little bit. Not go away, but you know, when you're trying to drill it in because you want this certain behavior or this certain thing to change and it's not, and then you get pulled into the trap, don't you? And it's that
Yes.
moment that you get pulled in,
Yeah.
and I don't know how to live with these consequences, to be honest with you, Keith. I mean, I
Well,
think this is the first 1 hour that I haven't sat down and cried. I've been crying for like a week straight. And I'm
oh,
like, God, unable to sleep for the past 3 days, not sleeping. And I think I'm actually going to be able to sleep after this. I really believe I am. And I
yeah.
remember when I was first introduced to you, and I used to, you know, the resistance within to actually settle. And I can't believe I'm actually speaking to you now. And there's no resistance. And I'm like, I wonder now. It's like a whole world opens up. And I'm like, I wonder if this is actually gonna, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's like it's like waking up from a bad dream or something, isn't it? You know, like you realize, never, and says in my book, he's again, never mind why, never mind why. Just, it doesn't matter why. All those traumas or those foolishnesses, that's the foolishness as the sins, the judgments, the confusions, the fears, the doubts, they're all in thinking, not in thought, but in thinking. And I'll mention this because I found this in Sid said once, he on a recording, he said I never, if this pertains to this never mind why, Aliyah, that he says I myself, I wouldn't even consider trying to figure out why. I wouldn't even consider trying to figure out why. Why am I, why did I do this? What's wrong with me? What's the matter with me? He said, I don't know why this happened to me. I don't know why it happens for anybody that they might heal. It's not, it's the unknown. And if you see the unknown, and let it in, your head will clear of the past, of the mistakes, the difficulties, and they aren't of any substance. They're just thinking, negative thinking, and you can hold that against yourself. Like we've all, with all these negativities, we hold them against the other, but we have to hold them against ourselves, and that's where you can heal and release it, is see that it's not true. But when he said, I wouldn't even consider trying to figure it out, and then he says, why am I so happy, or why did this happen to me? He said, because that would get me right back into the mess again. And when he said that, I thought, oh, that's the mess. That's the, like, you can go back into the mess if you want, but if you see that it's not, if you see that, never mind why, it doesn't, the mess is not, it doesn't have the power. It's not, it's just thinking. And he saw the truth of no thought. No thought. There's no thought. Like and you can't really I don't know, explain no thought. It's just you accept, just accept the past. Accept it. It's over. It's
God, that's
it's
so
not,
good.
it's not
Over.
true. It's
Oh.
over.
My 20-year marriage just went down the pan, and it's been the hardest, maddest journey I've been on, and the principles changed my life from something, and it's like I just cannot do the I keep going back to the why. I can't let it go, and I feel like I'm stuck in that mixed place where I know logically it is my thought. I know from the inside out, I know from the outside in, it's my thought. One, I know to be true. The other, I know it to be true, but I just don't believe it completely. And that suffering in that mixed place, I cannot, I can't keep. And I want to get there. I'm desperate to get there. I need to free myself from this place. I have to, because it won't shift. Hence why I went off on this journey, because I wanted some kind of shift and I wasn't getting it. It was like 3 years and everything else shifted in my life. Every single thing. Marriage came back, everything happened. And then this one thing, little mind would not let go of. And it just destroyed me. This put me on the
You know, that's the known. Let me just say it another way, but that's the known. That one thing, or it's in the known. There's a known there's an the it's the unknown. It's it's in the unknown that the answer is. Like, just if you can just not know, if you can see, oh, I just thought, I thought there was something to that. And that's in your known. In the known of your mind is where the problems, where all the problems exist. And in the known, you try to figure that out. You try to find, you know, approaches to it. You do battle with it. There's someone on this call here that I was talking to the other day, and I said, "What are you? Who are you fighting?" You know, and he said, "No one's ever asked me that question." And it was kind of a stopper. You realize that, oh, I'm fighting nobody. I'm fighting for nothing here. I'm resisting. What am I? What's this all about? I'm just making up monsters in my head. But however that insight drops in, even a little bit, it will. It doesn't matter. It's perfectly explainable why you feel negative, because you've been thinking negatively about this, that, or the other thing, or this one thing. But that's logical. The principles are a logic that explain the negativity, explain it. But it's so it's not. There's nothing unnatural about the negativity that you've gone through, because you've been thinking in that way. So it's not. But when you see that that's the logical explanation for it, then and then never mind why. Well, is there an explanation for the suffering? Well, of course there is. But the principles provide a logic for the suffering and for the health, both. But it's when you think there's something to the suffering that you need to figure out, you can't figure it out. Because it's too late to figure out why you feel bad, because you just thought ill and you felt ill. And even if you've been doing it for years or months or days or months, it's all logical. The principles account for that, but they also, the accounting for it removes the fear of it. You know, when you really understand how something really works, it takes the fear out of it. You know what I mean? Like it's the fear is removed. You say, well, of course I felt that way because I thought that way. That's all natural. The principles perfectly explain mental suffering, and because there's a logic, there's a psychologic to mental suffering, and so explaining it to find that explanation for yourself, it takes the fear out. Like just as an example, but I once knew a person, and well, this is just an example. I just made this. I'll just make this one up. Let's say there's a fun house, and you go with your friend through, a fun house, like in a carnival or whatever. They have a fun house, and you go in, and it's mirrors and different things, and you go through this one thing, and all of a sudden, out of the wall, the wall swings open, and there's somebody goes ah, like this, and you freak out, and let's say you run out of the fun house, and your friend says, "Hey, what's the deal?" "Oh, that really scared me." Says, "I didn't expect that." Say, "Well, it's a fun house, but there was a logic to it." So, "What do you mean?" Say, "Well, I noticed that there was that rubber mat that you stepped on. When you step on that rubber mat, after you left, I stuck around and I stood off the mat, and the monster disappeared behind the wall. Then I stepped on again, and it comes out. And then I backed off the mat, and then it disappeared. And then I stepped on it again, and so you go, really? It wasn't like you mean there was a science to the monster? Yeah, there's a science to it. The rubber mat, and there must be a lever under there, and the people designed it that way. It's nothing. It's just a fake thing. It's just something looked like something else. It looked like something scary. But when I stepped on and off it again, I realized it was logical. And so you go back in, and they said, "No, don't step on the rubber mat yet. Wait. Okay, I'll step on it first before you step on it." There. So but it diffuses when you understand the science. There's a science to mental life. It's a science. Science. It's not just belief, or it's a fact. Everybody has a truth that they're functioning according to. And it happens to you at birth, and so you see, to the degree that you see it, you live in peace and harmony, and more love and more understanding. And when you don't, then you get frightened, you get judgmental or whatever. But that's the way it works. It works that way because you think ill, you feel ill. But that's not a problem. That's just science. Like it wasn't a problem that Semmelweis's colleagues, it wasn't really a problem that they were killing their patients. It was science. The germs explained why the infections happened and why they were sometimes lethal, often lethal. So the science takes the mystery out of it, doesn't it? It takes the judgment out of it, and then you can see the beauty. The beauty of a science is that it's neutral. It's not man-made. It's not a man. There's nothing about you, Aliyah, that this is. There's no mistake. It's perfectly scientific why you've gone through what you've gone through, and as well as it is for anybody. But that said, there's a reason why Sid's first book was titled Second Chance.
Mm.
And how many second chances can you get? Well, an infinity. So it's just a thought. That's the answer.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Keith Ennert's not a funhouse anymore.
Yeah.
No, it's not a funhouse anymore.
Well, yeah. Well, maybe it is. But you go in like, well, what kind of deal is this? And then, oh man, look at that. Oh, that really scared the dickens out of me. But then you go on to the next thing and see what the next thing's going to hold. It's not. I don't know. Life has all these challenges and all these circumstances and situations and surprises and tragedies and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it's like Sid would say, life is a contact sport. So you have things that play out, but because there's a science to mental life, then it's not personal. You get to live an impersonal life more and more and more, where you can really enjoy the journey. And man, that really is a wonderful thing. Again, not as something to prescribe. I'm not prescribing happiness. I'm just saying it's a default setting. You can't, it's just the way you're made. You're a scientific, there's a scientific experience you're having, if you will, and don't personalize it. The less you personalize it, the more you get to experiment and play and be. There's a phrase that I heard someone say once, that you can be at play in the fields of the Lord. Hey, so thank you everybody for playing with us and bringing what your questions and your thoughts and everything. And I really, really, really appreciate each and every one of you to join in our town hall, and thank you. Thank you for being who you are and what you've done for me and for our mutual journey forward. Thank you. And until we see you again,
Okay. Thank you, Keith, and everybody. Thank
Yeah.
you for joining. I'm closing the meeting now. Take care.
Thank you, Keith. Thank you very much.
you're so welcome.
Say hi to your grandson.
Thank you.